So good afternoon to everyone watching us online. Today, I would like to welcome you to our third online workshop on the title Interdisciplinary Online Lab on Inclusive Culture. The workshop is organized by Creative Industry Košice and Urban Space Lab within the framework of the initiative Slovak-Norwegian Culture Matching, with the aim to foster culture cooperation between Norway and Slovakia. The project is supported by Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway through EEA and Norway grants. My name is Zuzana Zmateková, and I will guide you today through the discussions with our guests. So today we will talk about transdisciplinary projects with different approaches to work with specific neighborhoods, target groups, and audiences. We will see 4 presentations about citizen participation, landscape sustainability, and art installations in Norway, and inclusive culture spaces and creative design approaches in Slovakia. So we will discuss these topics with textile designer Zuzana Zmateková and her latest socially oriented project Amenge. Laurie Vestøl, who is environmental artist and founder of Urban Space Lab. Barbora Andor Tóthová, she is co-founder of the cinema Kinosmo and manager of their inclusive programs. And Arild Berg, who is a professor in artistic research in art, applied art, and design, working with participatory methods in public art. So a few technical details before I give the floor to our speakers. So first, this workshop is streamed on Facebook page of the Creative Industry Košice with the interpretation of the Slovak language. And second, for the audiences wishing to follow the event in the original English language, you can use our YouTube channel, and you will find the link on the Facebook event. Third one, during and after presentations, you can ask questions in English or in Slovak language through Slido. So let's start with the first presentation. I will just introduce Zuzana Zmateková. She is a textile designer, researcher, and textile artist currently based between Stockholm, Helsinki, and Bratislava. Her work is inspired by environmental and societal issues, sustainability, and social inclusion using design. Her latest socially oriented project Amenge presents a collection of textile prints designed in collaboration with Romani kids in Slovakia, aiming to present Romani culture outside of the common ethnic stereotypes, fight racism, and build positive image of the contemporary Romani culture. So Zuzana, you can start.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I will share my presentation. Can you see my presentation?
Yes,
now?
yes, it's good.
Great. Okay, so hello, my name is Zuzana Zmateková, and I would like to present you today our collaborative design project Amenge. Project was founded by me in 2020 and further joined by Henrietta Tolt, Petra Kurucová from an organization ETP Slovakia, as well as Petra Filipiaková and Monika Páďová. So during this presentation, I will talk about the starting points of the project, its participatory visual research, creative workshops, as well as the design process. At the end of the presentation, I will also briefly show how the project developed further. So Amenge project presents a collection of textiles that were designed with Romani children from Unit 9 in Košice, Slovakia. Project aims to build a positive image of contemporary Romani culture, fight racism, and promote inclusivity and diversity. So there were several starting points at the beginning of this project. The most resonating was the phenomenon of cultural appropriation that is typical for the fashion industry. Cultural appropriation of Romani culture, for example, can be seen in so-called boho or gypsy style. that has gained on popularity in recent years. So in the fashion industry, Romani culture is perceived as a symbol of freedom, passion, and is considered exotic. Such stereotypical view on Romani culture therefore stands in opposition to racism towards Romani minority, which is so common in Slovakia. So this contradiction between the popular stereotypical perception of gypsy style and racism came as very interesting to me as a textile designer, and therefore I decided to further address it by asking a question: how would textiles designed by Romani people look like? Would they follow the common stereotypes such as red color, big flowers, and golden jewelry, or would they be influenced by current fashion trends? So this thought inspired an idea to create a collection of textiles designed by Romani people. Here I prepared a project proposal that followed the common design process, including visual research, mood board creation, sketching, and designing. However, to start designing with Romani people, together with Henrietta Tolt, we were looking for a suitable organization that would put us in touch with them. When doing research, we came across ETP Slovakia, and after initiating meeting with Petra Kurucová, we agreed on further cooperation. Organization ETP Slovakia is regularly organizing different creative activities with Romani children in Luník 9. So thanks to the existing structure of regular meetings, we could implement our research and workshops in their meetings quite smoothly. Unfortunately, due to the pandemics, all the workshops we had happened online when we would connect with participants using video calls. So our online meetings started with the participatory visual research that aimed to gain an insight on taste and preferences of a selected group of participants while using visual tools such as drawings, photography, texts, and objects. In this visual research, we worked with 6 main topics. Each kit was supposed to prepare 5 examples in any form for each, but also drawing with crayons and painting. Of all the beautiful artworks, I further created layout for the final collection. The designing of the collection was fun, but also challenging because I have received a large number of quite different artworks that I had to sort in a way that would be including most artworks and present the ideas and aesthetic preferences of participants the best. To do so, I was guided by a color palette that was decided together with kids. Colors selected by children during the workshop then strictly determined the look of the final collection. This is how the collection looked like together. It includes artworks from structures of home and nature, altogether 14 prints. And now I would like to present you the final collection that was printed on text. Created it. So together we have printed 14 prints that represented creative potential of Romani children, as well as sort of showed that the aesthetic preferences kids have were really not influenced by what is stereotypically associated with the taste of their minority. The colors kids chose were very different from what we expected. They were more pastel-y and muted. Also kids were quite creative and talented, so I had a lot of material to choose from. So overall, the result of this project by far exceeded our expectations. We have exhibited it in East Slovak Gallery this summer, and since we were quite motivated by the response the project had amongst the general public and the gypsy community, we decided to develop the project further. In the second volume of Amenge, we decided to focus more on an educational aspect of workshops. Here we collaborated with lecturer Petra Filipiaková from East Slovak Gallery. She has planned creative workshops in a way that children would learn more about nature from different perspectives. So Amenge 2 was again organized by ETP Slovakia under supervision of Petra Tóthová. So during the workshops, children would observe, touch and draw different plants from their surrounding area, or plants that were unknown or exotic. They used tools such as magnifying glass and microscopes. Petra has also organized gallery visits during which children explored different visual representations of plants done by artists. Children could then, inspired by what they saw, paint and draw their own plants. On general public in Slovakia. So it gained a lot of attention, and I think it really helped to represent or show the potential of the Romani children in like a good light. And so when we won the Slovak Design Award in the category Society and the Environment, and also one of our prints was used as a background when a Pope was visiting. So it was also a bit, I think, satisfaction for the kids, so they could see their designs then in this big scale with the Pope. So that was nice. Okay, and that's all. Thank you very much.
Zuzana, thank you very much. I have a question for you through Slido. What was the major challenge for you in doing the project?
During the first part of Amenge project, I think the biggest challenge was the COVID, because it changed completely the way we had to hold the workshops. We couldn't do them in person, and we had to adjust everything to this online form. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty interesting, and we were quite scared that the children would not be very interested in looking into like a computer screen and to talk to us. So because they're quite wild, but somehow it still worked. So that was nice.
Okay, I also have one question for you. If you are planning to continue with this type of projects in the future in your practice?
We, like I said, because the project was quite popular, we plan to continue developing the educational workshops further, and we want to use the outcome in this form of textile designs that we eventually want to maybe sell, and this way earn like finances for the further development of the project. This is the plan for now.
Okay, thank you, Zuzana. And if you have more questions to Zuzana, then you can still put them to Slido, and we will have like time after all presentations to for discussion. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our second speaker is Laurie Vestøl. She's an environmental artist who develops new landscapes for the arts. She founded Urban Space Lab to explore connections between sustainability, place, and belonging. Art is a form of communication that stimulates through the senses and explores what it is to be human. The experience of the beautiful, mysterious, imaginative, and symbolic. Today, the shrinking of nature in our collective imagination and culture conversation is most likely due to not spending time outdoors. Can communities reconnect to nature through art? Laurie?
Thank you, Zuzana.
Hello, hi. I can see you
Hello.
now. Hi.
Do you want me to share my screen? Is
Yes.
that time for that?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. Here we go. Can you see it?
Yes, thank you. We can see it. You can start.
Thank you. As a child growing up in the Midwest under the open skies of the prairie, I remember the oak trees and the cornfields. I can still feel the texture of the bark of this tree under my hand, how it was to sit in its broad arms and think about whatever I wanted to think about. Let's see. Pollution by states and companies is causing what they call sacrifice zones, and the landscapes of the future are heavily contaminated sites. In most of my projects through the last 40 years, I've found quite a bit of pollution in almost every landscape I've worked with. When I first came from the States to Norway in the 80s, the river here in Drammen was one of the most polluted waterways in Norway. It was just filled with sewage and industrial pesticides. So inspired by land artists, I sketched a series of earth forms that invited people to touch the water and to experience the quality of it. Does it smell? What color is it? Can I swim in it? At that time, the answer was no. But today, I called this form Moon Beach because I wanted the tides to reflect the phases of the moon, and I could see the shadows of future people playing in the water and midnight swims under the moon. The city now calls it Bystranda, which means city beach, and it's been quite popular, and the water is getting cleaner. I was on the design team for the Holocaust in Oslo, where Quisling headed a genocidal program targeting Jews in the 1940s. In 2002 and 3, we changed the garden into a place for survivors and minorities to meet and to try to shine a light in the darkness that is embedded in the Norwegian history. The garden is now a place for dialogue and gathering, but it still carries in its soil the sorrow of the situation of victims and minorities in our society. Through public space, we develop connections to place, identity, and belonging. And can artists reintroduce nature into our collective imagination and cultural conversation? Can we actually try to heal the damage that we have done, both to the people on the planet and to our landscapes? I think that, as Zuzana mentioned in the beginning, that much of our problem is that we are much less outdoors and much less connected to other living entities. I was a city planner for 8 years and was asked to bring people back into the old city in Skien. And I was given this area that you see in the picture to work with. And in 2007, most of these buildings that you see were actually empty, and the courtyards were just filled with bicycles and trash and cars and nothing that any person would want to do anything with. And I asked myself, is it possible to meet the biological and the emotional needs of the citizens with this kind of functional content? And then I think the city is quite beautiful. So I was wondering if the structural beauty of the city can be reinterpreted by its artists to be sustainable over many generations in the future. As project leader, I started a renewal program together with Tom Erik Lønnerud and Dagur Egertsen. And together with the owners of the buildings, we started to reuse them in different ways. We used a lot of the backyard passages as spaces for art installations, cafes, and cultural happenings. And some of the inside we used as apartments for refugees and for quite a different spectrum of functions. And local artists installed contemporary art in each backyard, one at a time. And we called the project Mosaic. I founded Urban Space Lab in 2017 in order to have more freedom to work with what I thought were meaningful projects and to be able to also form the fundament of these projects and build up on them over time. For example, we transformed this parking lot of the Community Cultural Center in Pushkin into a backyard for youth to hang out. And since they helped to build the backyard, they have also had quite a feeling of ownership to it. So during Corona last year, over 700 teens spent time here playing guitar in the hammocks, picking apples from the fruit trees, and also grapes from the vines that go up the walls, and just enjoying being together even though they couldn't be close together. I believe that public space and participatory art can play a huge part in sustainable urban transformations. Our team has been using a hybrid science art lab format to learn more about subjects such as urban farming and the cultural history of an area. We explore biological, social, and cultural aspects of the site, and learning together, we do experiments and teach each other what we can do with an area. In this project that you're seeing on Klosterøya from 2018 to 2021, we involved some of the 1,000 high school students that were next door to the park in building their own park. And it was the site originally of the first abbey in Norway that had been decimated. It was no longer there. But we knew that the nuns grew food here for over 400 years until the paper factories moved in and wiped out all the gardens and asphalted out over most of the green. So we started by investigating paper making that the industry did, but instead of using the technical side of it, we used the sustainable organic methods used by the nuns. And we focused on the feministic history that had been lost over the years, working to remember the feministic profile of the space and what kind of values they had in the medieval times. Here, for example, you see the teacher Kåre Høyer, who did a volcano lab with the students learning how to make glass. This is the technique used in the earliest known glass objects from 2000 BC. I'm a landscape artist involving communities and reconnecting to the landscape. And currently I'm in the MFA master program in visual art at Lesley University in USA. I lay the groundwork for spatial and social change, and I put together interdisciplinary teams. And our interventions include everything from urban agriculture to industrial transformations and art installations in public space. Arild Berg, professor of artistic research in product design at OsloMet, he's my artist mentor, and will also be holding a presentation at the end of the webinar, and I'm very excited to see that too, Arild. For the last two slides, I wanted to show some of my work in progress. I've been designing a garden for dement residents together with a process artist named Grete Rokstad and board director Lene Hennem. A few years ago, when we visited the center for the first time, the residents were not allowed outside alone, and they spent most of their time in reclining chairs in their last phase of life. Now, today, we've built the garden and a reused greenhouse, and they chat together with the neighborhood kids within the safety of the garden. It's a place of laughter and also a place of lots of mistakes. And when we're there. Lately, I've been reversing the question. Instead of asking, what is my burial flute? Black turtle that will fill the hollow of the oak fragment with my ashes, letting the wind play through my remains. I have a great hope that artists will lead the way in challenging the anthropocentric nature of human civilization. What is our position within the larger ecologies and landscapes? And can we personally reconnect to life? Landscape and art, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We already discussed this topic because we were recording podcast, which will go out in next couple of days. So people will hear a bit more about our discussion about your work, but I would like to ask you how you include all of the different voices within your work, because you do a lot of collaborative projects in the form of labs. What is your strategy?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I find is really important is to just get to know the place myself. I usually spend time there just listening to what's going on in the place, what kind of nature is there, what's underneath the asphalt, what does it feel like, how hard does the wind blow? Is it very windy there like it often is in Norway? Are there a lot of people there or are just a few people walking by? I try to talk to the people that are there and find out why they're there and what they like about the spot and what they don't like. And then I usually try to discover who owns the plot and what they're dreaming about for this area and what they would like to do with it, and find more also about the pollution. And then usually we apply for funding and we start involving people in changing the plot if it needs changed, or protecting it if it needs to be protected.
And how do you keep them engaged during the process? I'm just asking if it's easier in Norway than in Slovakia, or if it's the same challenge as here.
Oh, to get involved in, I didn't hear what you said.
How you keep them engaged in a project through the process?
Yeah, I
Motivated,
think that's
yeah.
a good question, because it's mainly that it should be interesting for them in some way, and getting a feeling of ownership to the process, that it's not me that decides everything. They're actually involved in deciding what we're doing and how we're doing it. So I think ownership is really a key to doing that it's their ideas, not our ideas. But we then try to work together with a lot of the professionals to bring hope into being able to do it in actuality, not that it's just not plans, but they're actually projects that get built.
Thank you very much for your answers. So if you would like questions to Laurie and other speakers, you can post them to Slido, and we will look at them also at the end of all presentations. Thank you very much, Laurie. So next speaker is Barbora Andor Tóthová. She is a co-founder of Úsmev, local cinema. As a project manager, she has started inclusive programs in the cinema.
Thank you again very much for the invitation. And maybe in the beginning, I would like to clarify that, yes, I started and launched as a project manager the initiatives. And now my colleagues, Natalia Zmateková and Teresa Sejková, are following up as I'm on the maternity leave. So I'm not at this time involved in the activities themselves, but we are in a close communication. And I would like to thank this way to my colleagues that are working on it. So maybe for the ones that don't know Úsmev, I would like to start with a brief introduction of our project. Úsmev is an old cinema in Košice, in the second biggest city of Slovakia. And me and my friends, as a bunch of enthusiasts, we were looking for a place to screen films in Košice, as in many towns all around the world. Original art house cinemas were closing down, and in Košice we found ourselves without any cinema in the center, and we were successful in 2015 to get this Úsmev for rent from the Municipal Center for Audiovisual Culture. So from the beginning, we wanted our cinema to be not only a place to screen films, but also as a platform for communication between audience, between artists, as an educational platform for audiovisual arts, collaborative platform with universities and nonprofits, etc. So to go beyond cinema itself. Úsmev, as I said, is a very old cinema, and this year we are celebrating 100 years, actually. Úsmev is a love brand for Košice. We are very honored as a nonprofit organization, Cinephile, to have it for rent, this awesome space. I'm now inside, and it has different spaces. It's not in a perfect shape, but we are reconstructing slowly the whole building, and it's a cultural center. As I said, The main activities concern, of course, a screening of films. We screen a minimum of 3 films a day, premieres with filmmakers. We also run amphitheater in the summer, which has capacity of around 5,000 people in Košice. We do pop-up cinema. We opened another place, which is a garden cinema. We do street food festival, which may seem that has nothing to do with it. Do educational activities, concerts, different workshops on different, and we consider ourselves a community cinema. We also do many projects and are involved in different types of grants, and we were successful. And the main projects, or the biggest projects that we are running now, are Otvorený Úsmev, which actually finished recently. Cozy Kino, we also have a Norwegian support from EEA grants, and Interconnecting Cinema. The Otvorený Úsmev, Open Úsmev, and Cozy Kino are projects that the main topic of these projects is, in fact, inclusive cinema. And I'm getting there. So as we do many activities in different spaces, we could not do it with partners. And this is actually how the idea of inclusive cinema and inclusive projects came into our minds back in 2019. But of course, we had it from the beginning, but it had more concrete shape since 2019, because we cooperate with so many different organizations in Košice, and many of them are non-profits that work with different minorities and communities. And we realized that, in fact, the topic of inclusive culture in Košice is not addressed systematically, or not only on municipal level, but also on national level as an inclusive culture itself. And we wanted to serve as a maybe best practice example of cultural organization that actively works with this and is opening towards different audiences, minorities, and groups with different challenges. So what does it mean, inclusive cinema, and what do we do? So as part of this inclusive cinema concept are open screenings. As Zuzana mentioned, there are autism-friendly screenings, deaf-friendly screenings, blind-friendly screenings, and dementia-friendly screenings, which is, we call it dementia-friendly and senior screenings. We do also baby-friendly screenings. But it's a little bit different. And the idea of these screenings is that the conditions in the cinema hall are adjusted to the specific audience. For example, for autists, the lights are dimmed, they are not fully turned off. The program is selected due to maybe caring towards what specific audience is sensitive for. So we try to select films very carefully, and they are for free. Not only because we also want to erase the social barrier of finance and the fact that some minorities don't have a lot of money to go, and it's quite costly if a family wants to go to see a film, for example. But also to invite other people, not only, this is why it's friendly and inclusive. We really encourage everyone to come, not only a specific group. Inclusive Film School, we started before the pandemic. And the idea also, that's why it's inclusive, is that we cooperate with an organization that was mentioned already today at Slovakia that works with Roma children in Únik 9. Also Úsmev organization that works with kids with health challenges. mental and physical, and Keď môžem pomôžem, that works with different groups. And the idea is that the school works the same way as normal film school. 2 times a week there is a class, and kids learn how to make a film, basically, and the basics. And the regular kids, they pay for it. No more pandemic will will interfere with inclusive school and inclusive film camp. This was activity that we made because we couldn't do the film school some of the semesters because of the pandemic, and there were many hours missed for the kids. So we actually did in the summer, in August 2021, inclusive film camp. We had around 33 kids, and it was very successful. Kids really enjoyed it. It was a full week intensive film camp during which kids made a video for a popular song. It was very nice and successful. I think also I can say, and I'm very I'm glad that I can say that it was really inclusive and that friendships were made across different social groups and different kids with different challenges, and it was really nice, and it worked really well especially because we not only did film-based activities, but also we did we could say relaxed activities, sports activities. We gave every day we had an activity where kids could really make friendships and communicate together in different occasions and with different kids. We try to make groups with different with a variety of kids. Inclusive Film Festival was another activity that we did because we couldn't do all the open screenings through the year because of the pandemic, and we want to continue. This is important to say that we want to continue with the film camp and film festival even if there is no pandemic at all. It was a 4-day festival on different sites in Košice, where we introduced blind and deaf-friendly screenings. It's important to say that it's really hard to do these kinds of technologically, these kinds of screenings. We had to make, we installed special technology in the screening room, induction loop for hard of hearing, and also we had to have subtitles for all the films, of course, subtitles for deaf people or hard of hearing, and also we had the audio commentary for almost all the films. It was, of course, this was the most costly part of it all, and we couldn't do all of the screenings, but we hope that in future it was with different side programs. On the picture you can see Deviatka Kerečave that opened the festival, a choir from Room 9, for example. We did a screening on Hlavna Street to really involve everyone and people from Košice to see. It was a film with audio commentary, so people to see how it really looks like, and it the festival brought. We did many discussions also on inclusive culture, and it brought light to different issues also for us, how to really make inclusive screenings and inclusive cinema. But also it brought up, I think, different challenges for the city and cultural organizations in general. For example, what we realized, we didn't realize, but what is really something that we are working on, that are focusing on now, is the barrierization of the cinema, because we try to be inclusive and we do all these great programs, but in fact we are not totally. We have spares. That's the fact, and we now have a project ready to submit as soon as possible with the solution of this. It is an old building, so it was quite challenging. So this is a priority now, the barrierization. And that's why also for the Inclusive Film Festival, we did it in different places of the town. So we try to choose places outside of Úsmev that would be accessible with wheelchair. And we have an open culture conference in May, where we want to discuss deeper the issues that are now, and we want to introduce our activities and encourage other cultural organizations to bring up the topic of inclusion in culture. Also, something that is quite interesting that we realized during the Inclusive Film Festival is that the different minorities in Košice, maybe it's not something that it's in other cities or bigger cities in other countries, that they are not used to actually be involved in the program. And so they are quite scared. So they have mental barriers. Why not to go to programs that could be for them and that are made for them, or that are adjusted to their needs. So this is something interesting that that was brought up, and we would like to address also on the conference. We have different speakers with different experiences, and we also will do a side program. This is a picture of a performance piece, dance piece that will be also screened here for the conference. So I invite you all. And
thank you.
This is all.
Thank you very much. I have several questions here on Slido, but I will start with mine because last autumn we did like a living lab about inclusive culture, where also your colleagues were participating, and we were discussing a lot like communication with different target groups, because I think this is one of the most challenging things while doing inclusive program. How to get people into the space to see that it's really for them. So how do you communicate this like screenings and all of the program for example, for elderly people, if they are not on Facebook or, you know?
It's very personal. We realized that it doesn't work if it's not personal. That if you don't have from specific group, if you don't have organizations or individuals that would promote the events among their target group. So this is what you have to do. It's very, it takes a lot of time and energy, but it's of course very rewarding at the end. You have to send personal invitations to different organizations and individuals from these target groups, and if you are very lucky, like we were recently, or my colleague Natalia, she connected with a man from I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but he's the head of organization for seniors, one of the organizations in Košice. And of course, we were connected to others, but he somehow managed to really get them come here. And there were, I think, around 50 people on the last screening. It was really like he would promote it very effectively. So you have to have connections, ideally personal connections with organizations.
Yeah, thank you. And questions from Slido. If you would be able to duplicate the project of inclusive cinema in other cities in Slovakia, if you are thinking about something like that.
Mm, no. No, it depends. In Bratislava, we already are in contact with Kinosmo, which is the biggest art house cinema in Bratislava, and Jeden Svet Festival. So there are. I think it's starting to be a theme, a topic, and cinemas are slowly starting to realize that it could be interesting or worth trying. The problem is the funds and the energy. Um, for example, and of course also that in other cities and towns in Slovakia, there are mostly multiplex cinemas. There are very few art house cinemas, and there are only city or cinemas run by municipalities or towns, and there's usually one person working or two people working there, and it's really hard to do it. You have to apply for different grants. It's very complicated, but it's worth setting the example, I think, and maybe in future to maybe share the know-how. It would be the best.
Okay, and the last question: if you somehow work with refugees from Ukraine.
Oh yes, of course. It was a very short presentation, so I tried to
Of
really
course.
no, but it's of course it's okay. Yes, but I didn't mention everything. We do now. We organize every Wednesday at 4 screenings for Ukrainian families. They are mostly screenings for kids of animated films, etc. And we want to make Inclusive Film Festival uh, the main topic should be related to the conflict in Ukraine, because we feel that they are very a group that is really now in minority and challenged. They comply with all the aspects that a minority group has, and even more. And if they become from one day to another a very vulnerable group. So we are thinking this way, and also we are very happy that, or lucky in this whole mess, that we were contacted by girls that live in Košice that run a film festival in Ukraine, and they want to collaborate with us. So we hope to start collaboration and maybe start a film cycle with Ukrainian films. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, thank you. And the last speaker is Arild Berg, who is professor in artistic research in art, applied art and design with a specialization in product design, including the ceramic tile, architectural ceramics, and participatory methods in public art. He teaches at OsloMet, Oslo Metropolitan University in Norway. He has a Doctor of Art in Artistic Research in Public Space from Aalto University in Contemporary Art. His research is about collaboration between professional practitioners for cross-disciplinary innovation. Arild, hello.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all the very inspiring presentations today. It's been really interesting to see how a little sketch can be something that the Pope is, it's the background of the Pope is really an experience for a child. I think this is really a good example of inclusive culture. And I would also like to add that the way I was very inspired by the way Laurie is working, that what is it to be a landscape architect? Can it be merged with something to be a land art artist? Or this hybrid dimension is really something important. And when I work with participatory art, I think there are very many ways of doing it. And the way also you have showed how you work with the old buildings and renewing them, Barbora, living film activities. I think it's also very a way of using cultural heritage. I'm teaching students in product design, and I have a master student now from Czechia who's working with trying to renew or give life to abandoned buildings. So that is an interesting topic, I think. But in my presentation, which I will now start, I will show some different examples of what I think it is to work with participatory art. And in some way, it's not one answer, I think. Every person has to identify or define their own way. And to me, it's a bit not working alone, but working with others in different ways. So I'll show some examples. So maybe you see this, but I'm a ceramic artist, so I work with porcelain, and this is a form that I make art forms in. So you might wonder, how is it possible to work with participatory art as a ceramist? That's what I was wondering about. So I finished a PhD doctoral art studies in 2014, and I did several studies trying to explore what is it to work participatory with art in the public space. And the images you see here is on the left. You see the book, the thesis that I wrote, and some images from a mental health ward or a psychogeriatric ward for elderly people. And this was because I started to make participatory art for a church, then I did participatory art for a school, and then I wanted to do participatory art for a hospital to see different aspects of participatory arts for different stages in life. But to get access to a hospital and do research in that context, it's not so, you cannot just go in there and do it. You have to ask for permission, and I learned a lot about ethical decision makings that had to be done before I could do it. So I collaborated with a nurse, Mette Ingeberg, and she connected me with a hospital, and she said, I think we should work with a psychogeriatric ward, because I was just thinking hospital. Because in research, these are the people that are least valued and least focused in research. So I thought, yeah, this is very interesting. So let's try to do that. And then we developed several ceramic objects that should strengthen communication in the ward. And this, the materialization of the art objects was related to communication both in art-based research methods and in the hospital practice, and contributed in a special way to the dialogue with a sensory presence and tactile resonance. Further, I also took this approach into an outdoor art installation where I collaborated with a landscape architect, and we made a garden, and I wrote an article about this. I also think that it's both the collaboration, the social processes, and the theoretical work. The texts are, I think it's all a part of participatory art, ways to share the art, the ideas about the art. So here is an article written about sketching, where I think about hybrid sketching, or how you can work with participation and include people in the process, people in the hospital, let them touch the materials, make some sketches, and have dialogues about how do they think it should look like. And this is one way to involve people and to try to get inspired. And also, as an artist, I think it's a very inspiring way to approach the problem or the task. And then also I try to make things that I hope can be inspiring for people who meet the art. So it's both an individual part, but also a participatory ideal in a way. So this is from a project called Blue Collar, White Collar, where we were 4 ceramic artists who shared a studio, and then there was a filmmaker, Mona Hoel. Almost a year we were collaborating and making exhibitions with we have now made several exhibitions both in Norway, Sweden, Korea, and different places. So it's been very interesting to see how we can learn from each other, and how the film in some way created some kind of meta reflective thoughts for the ceramic artists who participated. And the way we were working directly with the materials created some kind of even more dogma oriented filmmaking for the filmmaker. So dogma film means that you work with a film approach where you have a handheld camera and try to not use artificial lighting and things like that. So, and my next example is also a work in progress, as Laurie also were mentioning. It's what's going on at the moment. It's wall sculptures that will be exhibited in a gallery in Oslo. Usually I've been working with architectural projects, but also group projects is some kind of participatory art where we try to negotiate with each other how many things do the others want to put into the space, how will it connect to each other, and what kind of titles do we want to have on these objects. And in this approach, I have been working with stripes, and I also wrote an article of stripes in the about Schiller's and his concepts of formwork, material operation, and play modes. So Schiller's theoretical concepts are used to focus on research in form in relation to the human urge for and desire to shape. And by showing concrete examples of stripes materialized in different ways in art and design, stripes are expanded as a typology of showing examples of bonding research. It's you look for pattern and pattern matching in the data you work with. So I think it's also interesting connotations between research and patterns in art. So that is a way to connect in the way I think, connect also art practice with artistic research or research and analysis of empirical data. On the left, you see an example from the article where Elisa Helland Hansen is a famous Norwegian artist who has been working with stripes in cups. So in this article, you can see a lot of different examples of stripes. So finally, I would just say that these different examples of inclusive culture is really inspiring, and that I think sometimes people think that what is it to be an artist, what is it to be a ceramist, what is it to be a landscape architect or a filmmaker. It's like put in a box in a way. So I think really like this hybrid ways of working as we have seen today. So the future scenarios for this is really interesting, and maybe this is also what we are going to discuss further today or later. So thank you.
Thank you, Arild. So I have some questions for you as well. So what inspired you to work with these target groups you mentioned?
Yes, I think it was really inspiring to go out of the gallery room and not because I had I remember when I was a young artist and just finished, and I was exhibiting in a very nice gallery, and when everything was finished and we went out, I thought, oh, is this all? You know, is it not going to work anymore in other ways than just be in the gallery, and then it's sold and it's like it felt a bit empty. So I was I think that was made me go towards this more interdisciplinary collaboration and doing things more like social projects. And in that process, I met a lot of people like social workers or nurses and different people who led me to this group. So it was more the participatory mindset that led me to the different participants in that way. So it was not always my choice, I would say.
Okay, and do you see this way of working as a way how you get more inspiration or more like input into your work, or do you see any added value to the target groups you work with while they are working with you?
Yes, I think it's added value for both groups in a way. So I think sometimes I hear that I should not listen so much to what everybody else thinks or want, because if you think, for example, if you imagine a musician who asks people, how do you think I should write my play? It sounds a bit strange, but on the other hand, I think it's really inspiring to hear what people think and what they do. And also I think it's inspiring for people to learn about methods in art and to bring people into the art process in different ways, in all kind of art processes. And I also think that this integrity that you have as an artist is challenged sometimes, but I also think it's important to think about the integrity of the people you collaborate with, and that everybody has an integrity, even if you are, a little child, an elderly person in a hospital, and everybody have in a way a similar integrity when they meet and collaborate.
Yeah, thank you. And I have one last question on you, and we will see if there will be any more questions in Slido, even like if there will be questions for all of you. And so I have a question: what are your future plans in participatory art? Do you have any ongoing projects or something you would like to start?
Yes, definitely. An exciting thing of doing this doctoral study in arts is that it opens up continuously new doors in a way that I didn't know existed. And for example, now I'm working with the art project in Creative Europe project, and we are a group planning to send an application to Horizon Europe, where we collaborate on European level. So that's really a way to bring it out of the gallery space and into the research area. So that's where my future plans are at the moment, and I connect this with my own practice in my ceramic studio, and as a teacher and researcher.
Thank you very much. I don't see more questions in Slido, but I will make an invitation. So I would like to invite you to another workshop or discussion, which we will have on 27th of April from 1 p.m. And the topic will be cultural policies supported by the digital tools. And I will just refresh my Slido one more time if I will not miss any more questions. Not really. So thank you all very much for your inputs, discussion, and maybe I will just make one more question for maybe just one round for all of you, because you work with different types of target groups. You have different strategies, and I think that one important thing is building trust with your target groups. So what is your main strategy? What is the main element of a trust between you and your target groups? We will start. Maybe Laurie?
Sure. I think trust has to do with being respected in a project. And so I think trust is built over time, and it's built slowly, and it's built with respect on both sides and common values and goals.
Thank you. Zuzana, maybe you can continue.
I agree on that. Also, I consider trust to be quite important for both sides, and transparency, and also letting people express freely their opinions and let them be heard.
And how it worked with Amenge project, because you had really hard start online, you know, like how it is building trust through online workshops with kids.
We relied quite a lot on the ETP lecturers who already knew the children, and then through them we then tried to get closer to children. And also what was important was that like we made the meetings regular, so the kids started to trust us that we will like show up and then also show interest in what they're doing and listen to them. I think this was like a gradual process, but because they were in their familiar environment, it was maybe easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you had like the bridge through the organization which is working with them regularly, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What about you, Barbora? What do you think?
So for us, it's also, as Zuzana mentioned, with organizations, of course, it's very important because they work with them closely, with different target groups more closely, and have relationships with them and slowly build on that. And then you start to have relationships with different people from these target groups. Košice is quite a small city, so it's doable. Also, what I think is effective is to go extra mile. So do different activities for these groups. For example, we had senior screening, and then we did a party, a Christmas party, pre-COVID, of course. So our autism-friendly screening and the Christmas party, and then we offer them space for these nonprofits to organize their programs for free. So it's like that, different activities, not only what we want, but what they need as well, to hear what they need.
Thank you. And what about you, Arild? You were working in a very specific environment of the hospital, so how it works there?
Yes, but I would like to mention these other projects which came to my mind when Zuzana talked about these children, because I was first I managed to create some trust when I was working in a church when I did the art project there, and that happened when I showed some of my own material works and artworks, and then I also were very interested in what they were telling and interested in the church and the environment. So it created the materiality created some kind of trust in a way, and that you are interested in each other's things. But like Zuzana says, it's like maybe sometimes challenging with children. I try to repeat this approach when I had a project with the children in the 12 years in a school, and then they were not very quiet, they didn't want to talk, and it was very shy. And but when we moved the dialogue or the interview in my head, it was to the open space in the architecture where they were usually used to be when we were walking around. Then it suddenly started to talk a lot about how they acted there in everyday life, and it created a totally different atmosphere. So the environment helped very much in creating trust by being in the familiar environment, like Zuzana said. So that's one way to not take people away from their where they feel at home in a way, or familiar spaces.
Okay, thank you. And I have one last question from Slido. So based on your experience, what is the biggest challenge for the inclusive culture in the future? Do you have any ideas, any visions, like what is the biggest challenge? We'll start. Maybe Laurie, yeah. Thank you.
I can start by just saying that I think one of the challenges is the feeling of maybe greed and money-oriented goals interfering with the artistic and the goals of the people themselves, you know, like gentrification in some cities and companies coming in and taking over areas that were built up by artists and that have a genuine expression in the artistic environment. I think it's important to collaborate in good ways with business people and companies. So I think it's a good communication is very necessary to create trust so that you're not misunderstanding each other when you collaborate. I think that was my main thought.
Zuzana, what are your thoughts maybe about like Slovak society, which is very very specific in social inclusion?
Yeah, so actually when you asked this question, I was thinking like maybe in Slovakia in many like fields or aspects, we are still a little backwards, or for us maybe the challenges are a bit different from those in Norway or Finland. So I would just say that the challenging is to continue trying to do this type of projects, because in Slovakia you sort of need a lot of, you need to be like really self-driven, like everywhere, of course, but in Slovakia it's maybe also not understood that well by like a general public and so on. So maybe just that would be the challenge, I think, to not give up.
Yeah, I cannot agree more with you. Like, it's very important to keep up with this type of project and communicate them a lot, and to present different types of target groups that they have a space in a cinema, in culture centers, in a public space, even in like artistic creation, and just try again and again and hope that maybe society will like change slowly from really xenophobic and, in some ways. Yeah, thank you. And what about you, Arild? Any thoughts?
No, I agree that it's you know, one of the biggest challenges is that you never can be able to include everybody. So it's and that's just, you just have to realize that, and just the mindset that you want to include someone, sometimes much and sometimes little, and it's like you cannot rescue everybody every time. So that it's I think also it's really inspiring to work in this collaborative way. So I think this once there was one art consultant who said to me when I was worrying, well, maybe people won't like this, like in this public art project, and then she said, well, imagine that this project will mean very much for one person, one pupil, then you have done something for this person. And that was really, you know, helpful in just thinking that if you can do something for one person, that is really valuable. And of course, the best is to do something for everything, but I think also it's valuable to do something for one. That's a good way to think, in my view.
Thank you. Barbora, would you like to add something? We are talking about what is the biggest challenge for the inclusive culture in the future?
Among all the, apart from all the things that you all said, I would add maybe for us, it's technical challenge. It's really find the solutions. It's quite challenging and costly. So the combination of finding funds and to do a technical solution for film festival or other activities, it's quite challenging.
Yes, I think so that in Slovakia the funds are...
I'm sorry, I jumped into very simple.
It's okay.
Is what we realized also in the Inclusive Film Festival during the discussion is that also the challenge of people are not used to go from different minorities to see culture, because they think it's either costly or not for them, or it's actually not for them. They cannot go there. But also what is important is that the town itself is not super inclusive or debarrierized, but you know what I mean? It's really hard for people with disabilities to move around in the city itself.
Yeah.
In Košice. This is also a great challenge for us here, and it's not addressed systematically.
Yes, we were discussing this a lot when we were making like this inclusive living clubs or living clubs about inclusive culture, that for many people, if they need assistance, like for example, they have assistance during the day to go to like post office or to go for shopping, but for example, they don't have assistance for evening to go to concert to help them. And yes, we were thinking about a lot of like, if we can do somehow like system for volunteers or something like that to address this issue, but it needs more like systematic change and discussion into like how this form of assistance, for example, works.
Or how could they go alone? You know, this is the main. I think is the best solution
Yes.
for the ones who can go alone if they would know that which trams go that are with the low platform, or you know, yeah. Because assistance is always relying on someone also, but it would be ideal if they could go alone.
Yeah, we were discussing with people with Down syndrome. So for them, it's very important to have someone with them to go. But yes, there are some groups which can go, of course, they can go alone, but they cannot in our city, which is very hard. Okay, thank you all very much for a very nice discussion. And I will just mention again that the project is supported by Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway through EEA and Norway grants. And there will be 3 more workshops. One will be on 27th of April. So thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.